Everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Prepping by Faith, and today I wanted to talk to you about freeze-dried foods and is it worth it? So this has just kind of been my experience I want to share with you and some suggestions I have why you would want these in your preps, or if you feel like there is a place for freeze-dried food in your preps. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are prepping foods that you eat on a regular basis and making sure you're keeping stock of your dried goods, your canned foods, that sort of thing in your preps. But once you've reached that point, there may be a time when you are considering freeze-dried foods and dehydrated foods. So I wanted to share with you, this is what I have prepped as far as freeze-dried food. I tend to stick with August Farms just because I don't like a lot of the prepackaged foods. I want options when I am making meals. And so for our family, it makes sense to go ahead and put some of these whole type foods in our preps. Now, I do believe there is a place for things like these lunch and dinner emergency food buckets. And the reason that we have several of these is just because in a bug out situation, there would be a place for these. You would want to go ahead and grab some of these on your way out the door. And when I'm talking about bugging out, guys, I'm not talking about humping it in the wilderness on foot with heavy gear. What I'm referring to is a situation where you would be forced from your home, like a forest fire, or the chaos has just overwhelmed your area. You know it's coming your direction and you want to vacate before you are stuck in that scenario. It could be some other sort of emergency, like a hurricane, where you need to leave your home. In that case, you want to be able to grab a couple things like this and throw in your car. So I'm talking about bringing this in a vehicle, not putting this in a bag on foot. So I believe you should have a couple of these in your preps for that purpose. You always want to make sure you have a tool like this, and of course you're going to need some water to rehydrate that food, so you're going to want to put a few cases of water in your vehicle as well, whatever you have room for. And I have done a video before on this sort of thing, chaos in the street and bugging out and that sort of video, so if you're interested in that, you could go ahead and check those out. I will link them in the description box below for you. But I wanted to show you some of the things that I think are most important as far as if you're interested in prepping freeze-dried and dehydrated foods. The first one on here that I think is very valuable is this vegetable stew blend by August Farms. So if you're new to this, I would recommend this just because it has a nice mixture in there for you already. It has a nice solid base. So it has your celery, your onion, your potato, your carrot, bell pepper, and cabbage. So the only thing you might want to add is maybe a little bit of corn or some tomato, something like that you want to add in there, meat, if you guys. And here's the other thing I want to mention. When you're prepping this stuff, don't think about just eating whatever's in the can. One of the things you need to do is think about blending this with things you've already prepped. So you want to add things like your rice that you have prepped for something like this. You want to think about your canned meat that you have put up that you could use to stretch this. Those are the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about. And with this vegetable stew blend, you need to understand that it is just the vegetables in there. So if you want flavor in that, you need to prep spices, you need to prep your bouillon cubes. You have to have something to create that stock base for flavor, or you're going to have a pot of watery vegetables. And I don't think that is going to taste very good, and it's not going to be very appealing to anyone in your household. So think about that. This is one that I would recommend just because it has such a nice variety already in there, and there's a lot that you could do with this as far as making different types of soups or stews or casseroles. So I would recommend stocking up on this one. The other thing I have that I feel like is a good one, besides these potatoes that are sitting here, is the cheese powder. Now, this cheese powder would be very good to prep and put up because you can go ahead and make a cheese sauce for either a casserole or some macaroni and cheese with pasta that you have prepped. This is why I'm saying you need to think about this stuff from a standpoint of using this and utilizing it with other items that you have prepped. So your pastas, your rice, all of that stuff is going to come into play, and your potatoes, as far as making these taste good and stretching them and coming up with other alternative meal options. So I would recommend stocking up on this cheese powder. The other thing is the tomato powder. So with this, you can use it as a base to make yourself a spaghetti sauce. As long as you have put up your spices and things to add to this, this is a very good one, because spaghetti sauce, we can keep it for probably about 2 years, because I know that the jar goes about a year, and then you can keep it a year past the expiration date. And don't take my word for it. Go ahead and check out that information for yourself. But that is something you can do with jarred spaghetti sauce. I would recommend having this for after that, though, so when you want to go ahead and make some from scratch, this is a good one to have in your preps. The other thing I have over here is just some, dehydrated celery. I have spinach, I have broccoli, and I have some bell peppers. I have carrots, and then I mentioned the potatoes. But I did want to go ahead and talk about these from a standpoint of if this is worth it or not. I always shop these when they're on sale. So if Amazon runs a sale on these, I pick up a can or two. If Walmart.com runs a sale on these, I pick up a can or two. You need to price these daily if you're interested in them, because the prices are always fluctuating and changing, and then that way you're not overpaying for them. But one of the other things that you can do with a lot of these vegetables is get yourself a basic dehydrator, and I'm not talking a freeze dryer, I'm talking a dehydrator, because a lot of these are just dehydrated, and you're going to be able to get yourself some regular vegetables from the store or the frozen vegetables, and you're going to be able to dehydrate those yourself if you have the machine, and then you can put them inside a Mylar with oxygen absorbers, or inside of a canning jar with oxygen absorbers, or you can go ahead and remove the air with a food saver. But that is something that you can do, and dehydrated food will definitely last you 15 to 30 years. So I would recommend you guys do that. I know freeze dryers are very expensive, so that's really not in a lot of our budgets. I don't have one myself because of that, but there are other things we can do as far as vegetables go that's going to help stretch our budget. I'm not saying don't purchase some of these, because obviously I have these myself and I think there is a place for them, but there are cheaper solutions. So this is some of them. I also have the bell peppers, and then I have corn back here also that I have prepped. And then the other thing I wanted to show you is just these banana chips. I feel like these would be a good morale booster. This is something you might want to consider because it is a sweeter option. It is loaded with potassium. It's probably going to be a better snack. You could also take this and mix it with some peanut butter to make it more filling. The other thing I have down here is the peanut butter. I feel like you should have a few cans of this at least in your preps. Now this doesn't last as long. It doesn't have as long of a shelf life. It says up to 5 years, but I believe you should have some peanut butter powder because you are going to be able to save this longer than you can regular peanut butter. So I do have that. And then I also have the honey powder. And the reason I prep this, I know honey will last a really long time, like it's a forever food, but it does crystallize really easy. And for me, that could be kind of annoying, especially in a situation where you're trying to save on things like your propane or other things to heat up water with, to heat that and remove the crystals from it. So this would be an easier solution if you're just wanting to mix up a little bit of honey at a time. So you might want to consider putting some of that in your preps as well. The other big item I have over here is dried whole egg powder. And with the egg shortages that are taking place, I would recommend you guys invest in some of this dried whole egg powder to put up in your preps. There are people that will also take their dehydrators and dehydrate eggs. My only caution with that is that I feel like that could be slightly riskier just from a standpoint of salmonella or botulism if you don't do that 100% correctly. So I've kind of stayed away from that. I would imagine if you had a freeze dryer, it would be a safer process. There are people that do it, and they've done a good job of showing how to do that. I know Linda from Linda's Prepper Kitchen has done it. It's not something that I feel comfortable doing, but, I say to each their own, and whatever you can do to stretch your family's budget, then go ahead and do that. If you feel comfortable with it, go for it. One of the other things that I've mentioned before is that you can freeze your eggs safely in your freezer for a year. So if at minimum, I would suggest people start doing that. Kind of figure out how many eggs you're using in a week and then try to do some math calculations and put some of those up in a freezer for your family. So this dried whole egg powder, I do believe, has a place. You want to also shop this according to sales because this stuff is going to continue to rise in price. And the other thing that I've heard is that there are supply chain issues. There are issues as far as getting the product now to fill these. So we're going to start seeing shortages where these freeze-dried foods are concerned. So if you want any of these in your preps, now is the time to get proactive about that and budget it in. So these are just some suggestions for you. I hope this video has blessed you today and helped you with some different information and given you some ideas as to what you can store and why you would want to store it. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Remember to pray, prep, and put God first. God bless.